Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX3, and EX3 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the Gallantmon deck. So that's right, Gallantmon is back with another new evolution line for us to try to use and incorporate, and I think this new evolution line definitely does flesh out and round out what Gallantmon is even capable of, making him even stronger. I think that this is a fantastic deck to think about investing in if you are a new player, just because a lot of his core pieces are from the starter deck and from the newer sets, making him a very easy deck to pick up and build. But at the end of the day, Gallantmon at his core is still going to remain mostly intact, where he is an aggro control style of deck, where you're going to build up your one big stack, move it out, and then do lots of powerful things, trying to control the opponent's field while we're attacking or digivolving. So with all that said and done, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gigimon. So the EX2 version of Gigimon is going to be the main Digitama, just because it has that draw engine attached to it when we're aggressing with our Gallantmons, Growlmons, or Guilmons, which is basically everything in the deck, making him the best one to use. If you wanted to use a 5th Digitama, by all means feel free to do so. The other Gigimons I would definitely recommend, not only just because they could help DP boost, even though the deck doesn't need it that much, but the fact that they have Gigimon in their name is super important for how the new EX3 version of Guilmon works. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Guilmon X Antibody. So Guilmon X Antibody is a pretty decent card just because we have that alternative Digivolution condition where we could Digivolve him for 0 on top of our other Guilmons, and he has a nice when Digivolving ability to help control low-level Digimon to try to snipe them, and we have easier ways in this style of the deck to be able to play our Guilmons to have an easier use at his removal effect. But on top of that, he also has a nice inheritable ability that's increasing the range of our DP deletion based abilities by 1,000, which is still pretty good. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Guilmon. So this is the EX2 version of Guilmon, and he's going to be the search engine for the deck, acting as the primary digger. So his on-play ability lets us look at the top 4 for any Growlmon or Gallantmon and our Takato and add them into our hand, which is pretty good just because those are, well, the types of cards that we need to try to make our deck as consistent as we possibly can. Then he has a nice when attacking ability that's also going to be adding some extra passive removal, which is something the deck generally likes to do anyway. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Guilmon. So this is the starter deck version of Guilmon, and this Guilmon not only has the good warp potential to allow us to skip our stages all the way up into our level 6 in a pinch if we need to try to get back up and catch up into the game, but he also has a nice inheritable ability that's rewarding us with even more card draw when the opponent's Digimon gets deleted, which we have a lot of ways in this deck to be able to delete their Digimon. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 3 copies of the brand new EX3 version of Guilmon. So the important thing on why we want to run Gigimons specifically is because of this card, just because he digivolves for 1 on top of a purple level 2, which is already pretty expensive for a level 3, and we're not running any purple eggs in the deck, but he can digivolve for 0 on top of any Gigimon, which just makes him easier to use. Then on top of that, he has an on-delete ability where we get to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon, and if no Digimon was deleted, we get to mill 2 cards off of both players' decks, not only filling up our trash, but the important thing for this style of deck is filling up the opponent's trash, so that way we could have them be at a particular trash count for specific abilities to trigger. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Growlmon X Antibody. So Growlmon X Antibody, like Guilmon X Antibody, has the alternative Digivolution condition, where he could Digivolve for 0 on his base form, which is pretty good because it's adding some extra cycling into the deck, being able to Digivolve on top of basically a Digimon of the same level. Then, on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability that we've seen with the Guilmon X Antibody, where it's just increasing the range of our TB-based deletion effects, which is something Gallantmon is already playing around with. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Growlmon. So this is the starter deck version of Growlmon, and even though he doesn't have any native abilities, he's just a good base to use in combination with Growlmon X Antibody, just because he has a nice inheritable ability that's rewarding us with some memory generation when we delete an opponent's Digimon. The cool thing about this and the Guilmon, it doesn't specify that it needs to be via card effect, so if we just attack into the opponent's Digimon, then we're still allowed to get the bonuses off of those cards. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of the brand new Growlmon. So the brand new Growlmon, he could Digivolve for 3 on top of purple level 3s, which we'll never do because his alternative Digivolution condition states that we get to Digivolve him for 2 on top of a Guilmon. So the name-based synergies actually do matter in this deck, which is why I'm using specific cards. Then the ability that we're trying to gain for using him is some extra mill if we're unable to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon that we've kind of saw with our Guilmon, except instead of an on-delete ability, it's a when Digivolving ability this time. Then he has a nice extra benefit for a good inheritable ability to add some extra damage potential into the deck by allowing us to gain Security Tech +1 by deleting one of our other Digimon, which our level 5 can help set up, so it all just kind of combos and feeds into itself. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of WarGrowlmon X Antibody. So WarGrowlmon X Antibody is an absolutely insane card, not only being able to Digivolve for 0 on top of his base form, like all of the other X Antibodies for some extra good cycling, but his when Digivolving ability actually is pretty decent at allowing us to try to delete the opponent's Digimon and gain even more benefits and memory for being able to delete the Digimon, and if we used him on top of his base form or with the X Antibody option, then he could even try to delete those Digimon himself, and with the increased range of our DP-based deletion abilities, if we have them underneath him, then it just makes him an even stronger level 5 to think about using, even though he doesn't have any inheritable abilities. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the brand new EX3 version of WarGrowlmon. So this version of WarGrowlmon is pretty decent just because he has the alternative Digivolution condition where we could Digivolve him for 3 on top of any Growlmon, which is pretty good, again allowing us to try to be as efficient and effective with our cards as we possibly can. Then this in combination with the EX3 version of Growlmon is really good because we're trying to fill up our trash even more, so that way we could get our trash to be at a particular count and the opponent's at the same time, because if we have 5 or more cards in our trash, then being able to play a Takato or a Guilmon from our hand or trash for free is really good at just being able to set up our field. So the Guilmon does trigger its on-play abilities if it does have any, and this is also good to play in combination with our EX3 version of Growlmon, so that way we actually have a Digimon body if we already have our tamer set up to be able to utilize his ability to gain some extra security tech on our higher stages, with this card being the setup piece. Next, on to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Gallantmon X Antibody. So Gallantmon X Antibody is an absolute beast of a card in his own right, with a lot of different ways on how we could use him. So we could Digivolve him for 1 on top of a Gallantmon, Digivolve him for 4 on top of level 5, and it doesn't matter how we Digivolve up into him, as long as we get up into him, then we get to use his when Digivolving ability to either A, delete one of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP, or B, unsuspend this Digimon if no Digimon was deleted, so that way if we know that our level 5 or 6 is going to delete the opponent's Digimon, then that just allows us to be even more aggressive with this card, allowing us to actually have some flexibility on how to use our cards. And then his secondary ability rewards us for being able to delete the opponent's Digimon with the use of our Gallantmon or X Antibody in his inheritable source to be able to burn the opponent's security for some more damage potential. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Gallantmon. So you could kind of customize your other Gallantmons to fit whatever mold you need them to based on the types of abilities that you're going to be playing around with, but I still prefer the starter deck version of Gallantmon, not only just because it's a cheap card to attain, just because if you're already building it off of the starter deck, you should already have a good amount of this card already, but on top of that, he's just one of the better Gallantmons in general to use. So he natively has Security Tech +1, making him super aggressive, and a nice when attacking ability for us to combo with it to be able to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon, and if no Digimon was deleted, then he gains a nice sizable boost. And then the last Mega and only level 7 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Gallantmon Crimson Mode. So Gallantmon Crimson Mode is going to be basically the win condition of the deck when you are able to get up into your Gallantmon. So his Win Digivolving ability is just your classic delete ability that a lot of level 7s have, and then his when attacking ability is part of the reason what's making the red-purple Guilmon line even better, just because for every 10 cards in the opponent's trash, which we then can start forcing cards into their trash by some milling, then we get to burn the top card of the opponent's security stack. So the bigger their trash is, the more cards we'll be able to burn from their security with Crimson Mode. And then as far as tamers go, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Takato. So Takato is going to be the main tamer that we want to use, and we don't necessarily need a memory fixing tamer because of Takato's ability to be able to give our Gallantmons or Growlmons the Blitz ability for the turn when we Digivolve up into them. Then he also is rewarding the deck for how the deck wants to play, because we do want to try to delete a lot of the opponent's Digimon by gaining us a memory and suspending the tamer when we actually do delete one of the opponent's Digimon. So he's just a very well-rounded tamer to help the deck be as playable as it possibly can be. And then the only other tamer I'm going to be running is going to be 2 copies of Cool Boy, just because we are utilizing the X Antibody option and we are utilizing a lot of X Antibody based Digimon. So this is just going to be a good search engine or searching tool to be able to try to dig those out off the top 3 of our deck. Then he's a really good card to use with the usage of our X Antibody Digimon when we basically Digivolve from our base form into our X forms. Then we get to suspend this tamer to gain some extra memory and card draw to, again, try to not only help with the consistency of the deck, but make more powerful plays possible in combination with our other cards. And then as far as the option suite goes, I'm going with something very simple with a removal, a memory boost, and the X Antibody option. So starting with the removal option, I'm using Crimson Blaze as the primary removal option, just because it's an easy card for us to use, reducing its cost for every Digimon the opponent has. So it could be a very cheap option for us to use, and it's really good at being disruptive towards the opponent. Again, not only deleting all of their Digimon with 6000 DP or less, which we can increase the range with some of our range increasing type of abilities, so we can make this card even stronger than it normally is. And on top of that, the opponent can't play their Digimon by card effects, really shutting down some of their abilities that they want to try to use to be able to get some free value out of their cards. Then I'm going to be running 2 copies of Red Memory Boost just for some extra consistency, just because we get a look at the top 4 for any red Digimon, and our level 7 actually is red and is a Gallantmon, so we do have easier ways to search him out versus some of the other level 7s that we could be running. Then, like all memory boosts, it has the delay ability after its main ability is already used up to be able to gain us 2 memory at a later turn to make even more powerful plays possible. And then the last card and last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of X Antibody. So X Antibody is an absolutely fantastic card for basically any X Antibody deck that actually wants to use this card, and, well, with WarGrowlmon X Antibody and Gallantmon X Antibody both wanting to use this card in case we don't have the base form, it only makes sense for us to want to run it. Its security effect could anti-tempo the opponent, which is already pretty decent, on top of the fact that it does have some really good combo plays and enables combo plays, with its inheritable ability not only being disruptive towards blue decks and trying to get rid of your sources, and this is one that they can't, but it allows us to Digivolve when we attack into another X-form Digimon to be able to create some really powerful combo plays. But as far as the overall strategies on how we actually are going to play the deck, it's still just going to be, for the most part, a single stack deck that we're just going to try to make our Digimon as effective as we possibly can. So in our raising, when we start the game, it doesn't necessarily matter which rookie that we have as long as we have one. Ideally, we would prefer to start with one with an inheritable ability, and we then, if we have it, could go into Guilmon X to be able to draw an extra card and add in an extra inheritable ability. Then when it comes to our level 4s, we ideally want to then move out our Digimon. If we don't, that's no big deal, but we want to Digivolve on the field into our Growlmon from EX3 to be able to get some good passive mill or delete the opponent's Digimon, and ideally we would want the mill to try to put our trash and the opponent's trash in the best position that we possibly can for our various other card effects. Just like how we want to then digivolve into a Growlmon X Antibody, just again because we're already cycling through our deck and he's adding another inheritable. Then we're going to go from Growlmon X Antibody into WarGrowlmon. And if we have enough cards in our trash, then WarGrowlmon is going to either bring out our Takato, or it's going to bring out a Guilmon. Again, it doesn't matter. The best Guilmons that we could use is the EX3 version of Guilmon and the EX2 version of Guilmon. EX2 has an on-play ability we could actually then trigger to be more consistent, and EX3 Guilmon has an on-delete ability for us to then use when we're utilizing the inheritable of our Growlmon. For if we're going to swing, then we get to delete the Digimon, get his on delete effect off, and then be able to gain an extra security attack. So whichever one you go into, either Guilmon or Takato, doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the fact that he's helping us set up is the most important aspect of the card. Then from WarGrowlmon, we want to try to go into WarGrowlmon X Antibody, and if we don't have the WarGrowlmon and we don't have the setup, then we do have the X Antibody option to still try to get full value off of his ability to be able to add a debuff to the opponent's Digimon and delete them to allow us to be able to gain some more memory to play around with for some good turn enhancement. But ideally, we want to digivolve him on top of the War, just because we already would have either the Tamer or the Guilmon set up on our field. Then we want to then go into our Gallantmon. Even though this Gallantmon doesn't have any when digivolving abilities built in, that's fine. We don't necessarily care, just because he's a little bit more tempo efficient. And if we have Takato set up, then he's already going to have Blitz, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But if we have the Guilmon set up, then we could swing, delete the Guilmon, and then he gains an extra security attack, and if no Digimon was deleted, he's going to be swinging 3 checks at 14k, which is pretty powerful. But if we have the X Antibody option card underneath him, then during that attack, not only can we use his when attacking ability before the when attacking ability of the X Antibody option, we then get to use the X Antibody options when attacking ability to go into a Gallantmon X to then either delete a Digimon or restand our Digimon to, again, make more aggressive lines of play. So that's kind of like the general gist on how we could play a lot of our cards and what a lot of our cards are going to do in combination with each other to make a very powerful Digimon. And then there are just a whole bunch of other tech and tools that you could think about incorporating into the deck, all depending on what you actually want to gain out of the deck. So as far as alternative level 3s go, you could run some anti-meta rookies if you really wanted to, and there are just a couple of other Guilmons that you could think about playing for various other Guilmon benefits. Then with level 4s, you could think about splashing in a Gunimon or a red hybrid just to act as that hybrid win condition, but there are just a lot of other Growlmons that you could think about utilizing as well. Then with the level 5s, usually you just want to round yourself out with the WarGrowlmons, and we have some other very good WarGrowlmons to think about using, coming from, again, the starter deck and from EX2. Then the other Gallantmons are still pretty useful depending on the types of effects that you're trying to use and prioritize. Then as far as some other level 7s go, we do have Jesmon GX to think about with Royal Knight synergies, and well, Gallantmon is a Royal Knight, and an example of if you wanted to include Jesmon GX might make the BT2 version of Gallantmon more desirable because he actually does have a when digivolving ability in combination with Gallantmon X Antibody. But if you want something a little bit more generic in terms of good level 7s, you could use BT5 Blitz Omni in combination with Omnimon X Antibody to have really powerful win condition level 7s as well. Then we do have Callimon, who isn't a level to Digimon, but does help with some extra DP and extra card draw and memory generation. Then, because we are playing in red, we have a slew of different removal options and other utility options that we could think about leaning into. So we do have something like Atomic Megalo Blaster to try to help deal with wider fields. Then we could just run something like a Gaia Force for just a hard removal. And we even have cards like Lightning Joust to act as a good boost to make our Digimon even more effective than they normally would be. Then as far as some good alternative tamers go, because we are splashing into purple, and we do have some good synergy to help set up Alice McCoy to make our evolutions cheap and efficient, that just makes her a really good card to think about utilizing. And we do have some other red memory fixing tamers that we could lean into, again, depending on how you build your deck and if you feel like you need to incorporate them. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.